Well, Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong is being hailed a champion of same-sex marriage as she prepares to tie the knot with her long-term partner, Sophie Aloh. The couple met nearly 18 years ago and share 2 daughters. Senator Wong voted against same-sex marriage in 2008 and in 2010 explained her opposition to redefining marriage in these terms. She said, "On the issue of marriage, I think the reality is there is a cultural, religious, historical view around that which we have to respect." Now, while she campaigned hard to legalise same-sex marriage in the lead-up to the plebiscite in 2017, she did dismiss the plebiscite itself as, quote, an expensive stunt. At the time, she said, "I am sure we can go through a whole range of things that $122 million can be spent on far better than a vote that is not going to be binding." Let's bring in our panel tonight, former Labor Minister Graham Richardson and New South Wales One Nation leader Tanya Mihalek. Graham, we all wish Penny Wong the very best, but is she a champion of same-sex marriage as is claimed by some journalists today?
Well, yeah, I think she can claim to be that now. I'm not sure it's always been the case, but it looks like it's the case at the moment.
Tanya, the Resolve poll published in the Sydney Morning Herald today found that Australians rate Foreign Minister Penny Wong as the nation's most impressive leader. So that's good timing with her wedding coming up. She's followed by Jackie Lambie, and then in third place, can you believe this, is Jacinta Price. Third. That's a farce, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I don't know who they're polling, certainly not anyone I know. Look, it's great PR for Penny, but, you know, one can't forget that only 6 months ago she was part of Mean Girls and leading the pack there. She's had a very interesting career. When she was Climate Change Minister, she was certainly despised by many Australians, and as we've just heard, she equivocated on the issue of gay marriage, losing people on both sides of the fence there. And, of course, led the pack with Mean Girls. It's extraordinary that she's now seen as the most likeable politician in Australia.
All right, Graham, I'll give you a free hit. Tell us why Penny Wong is so likeable. She's the most likeable politician in the country.
Hard to believe.
Well, she's always been a great mate of mine. I've known her for a long time. And I find Penny terrific company. She is a warm person, and she's obviously very, very bright. So I'm not at all surprised, and I congratulate her. I hope she stays around for a long, long time because Labor needs her.
Graham, what do you think about Jackie Lambie coming ahead of Jacinta Price?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, Jackie Lambie made, in my view, the best speech I've ever heard in the Australian Parliament, when she talked about how she was the only one in that Parliament who had ever been on the dole, and the experience of being poor. And it's true. I mean, most of the people who become politicians who get elected to Canberra are not poor. They never are. And she's the only one that ever conceded that she was. And I've always rather liked her. I don't really know her, but I think she's certainly a force to be reckoned with.
She absolutely knows how to cut through in the media, that's for sure. She's always good for a quote. Tanya, just on this likeability poll, it was 1,600 people surveyed in this Resolve poll published in the Sydney Morning Herald. Now, I've got bad news for you. Are you ready?
Oh, no. Go on.
Your party leader, Pauline Hanson, she made the list as one of the least popular federal politicians. So give me your reaction to that. Why is she so unpopular?
I don't believe it. And I just met with Pauline in Central Coast a couple of weeks ago in December, and I can tell you there were queues of people wanting to have a photo with her there at one of the local clubs at Central Coast. So, look, again, don't know who they're polling here, but I wouldn't agree with that. I think Pauline is a very, very popular politician in Australia. Somebody who actually speaks her mind and stands up for ordinary Australians.
Since I put you on the spot, I'll give you some good news. They also polled for recognition, and the poll found she was better recognised than the opposition leader, Peter Dutton. So she's got that going for her. Look, let's get on to some more serious topics. Concerns are being raised over the government's $2.2 billion pledge to Victorians' suburban rail loop project. And Graham, I think the concerns are justified. This project purports to answer Victoria's transport and housing crisis by plonking high-density housing in existing suburbs where the rail loop will be built. But you've got residents in affected suburbs angry at having high-density housing forced on them. The plan does nothing to help people in Melbourne's outer suburbs where the population growth is actually occurring. And there's got to be serious concerns about whether the Victorian Labor government is able to manage a project of this size, about $200 billion in total, considering their abysmal track record. Now, if you live in Victoria, OK, you get the government you voted for, but why should the rest of Australia be stumping up huge money for something so dubious to be handled by the Victorian Labor government?
I actually think, and I'll surprise you with this, that's a reasonable question. I look at that proposal and I think to myself, my God, there must be things better to spend money on than that. I'm surprised that the Labor government in Victoria has stumped up so much for it already and is determined to keep going. Because it just looks to me like one of those white elephants that you can just see before your very eyes is just going to tank, and I think the Labor government's popularity will tank with it unless they're very careful.
I mean, Tanya, you look at the way the Victorian Labor government has mismanaged their funds, and I mean the current Premier, I mean she was responsible for the Commonwealth Games fiasco, so you'd hardly be throwing more money after bad if you were Anthony Albanese.
Yeah, it's also a bit concerning that only recently Albo moved heaven and earth to ensure that Infrastructure Australia wouldn't have any opportunity to scrutinise this project, which I think is quite odd because he actually set up Infrastructure Australia when he was the minister back in the Rudd Labor government. So, you know, you'd want to scrutinise this project properly. I do find it concerning that they've just given it the green light. There's lots of red flags already being raised. Victoria's had form in cancelling projects in the past. We know the East-West Link was a disaster, $1.1 billion for the taxpayer. I can see why people are very concerned. And at the same time, you've got to remember they've said no to about 50 projects across Australia, including not providing the $1.4 billion that was needed to connect M7 to the M12 to the Western Sydney Airport, which you would think that would be a priority for the federal Labor government. So it's a very odd decision to make. You'd have to wonder who's in Albo's ear. But ultimately, it's one to watch, and I would hope that there'll be more scrutiny in relation to it because it is a big concern.
Well, speaking of odd goings-on, let's go to America for a moment. The Michigan Supreme Court has rejected an attempt to remove former President Donald Trump from the 2024 primary ballot. That's in contrast to Colorado, where a court ruled Trump ineligible to run for high office because of his involvement in the January 6 insurrection. And when I say involvement, Trump's involvement was to call for a peaceful protest. Graham, we're going to just face these legal challenges ongoing for the next number of months, aren't we? And doesn't the US presidential election, even the primaries for the Republican Party, face the prospect of being turned into a legal fiasco?
Well, I think not the prospect, the certainty. I don't think there's any doubt that these things are going to be decided in courts. They're not going to be decided by the people who should be making the decisions. They'll be decided by judges. And I don't think that's ever healthy for the political process. America's got obviously a very healthy democracy, and I don't think you should ever interfere with that. You should just let the process go. But you know, Trump is the kind of figure that is loved and feared, and you can't imagine the kind of division that he causes. You know, that you mention his name in America and you get incredible support for him, but you get a vicious hatred of him as well. So he's just such a controversial figure. I can't think of anyone as controversial as he in my lifetime, really.
Absolutely.